My team requested that I include a little slide about myself. babyark is new on the market, and I'm a new advocate. I know you guys are used to seeing the other advocates around, so I just thought I'd introduce myself a little bit and give you guys just a little view into how I even came to be here. So I'm Brittany Schroeder. I am a CPST up in Washington State. I'm in the greater Seattle area. And I have two kids, a dog, husband, and I actually volunteer locally with Car Safe Kids, which is Denise Donaldson's group. So shout out if there's any of my Car Safe Kids techs on the webinar today. So I just wanted to go over how I even came to be at babyark. So I saw babyark on Instagram in January 2023, like I think many of us did. And I saw that first social media messaging of world's safest car seat. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? CPSTs know that the safest car seat is the one that fits your child, that fits your vehicle, that you can use correctly for every single ride, fits your budget, fits your lifestyle. So to see a brand coming out with world's safest car seat was very jarring and concerning. And I and many other CPSTs on social media called out babyark for this messaging. I know that, I personally messaged them and other CPST friends of mine did as well. And, we went back and forth a couple of times and kind of left it at that. Like I think many CPSTs do when we see something new or we have a question about from a brand on social media, and just kind of left it at that. I went to Lifesavers, the Lifesavers conference earlier this year, and went to the babyark booth because I'd never seen the seat before, and ended up, me and a couple of my other CPST friends were chatting with the babyark team and ended up meeting with them after the day was done, the conference day was done, and we really asked them a lot of questions. We were explaining the harm of that world's safest car seat messaging, and how that's not really something that we put out there, that brands put out there. And we were so pleasantly surprised that the babyark team, was really open to our feedback, and they were, sincerely interested in fixing that relationship with CPSTs. And so we felt really good about that conversation, but we were like, okay, well, maybe that was it, right? And later after that talk, we did see a huge shift in the babyark marketing. They weren't using the world's safest car seat messaging anymore. They really kind of pivoted more to what we see as kind of the industry standard of what brands put out there on social media. And I was pleasantly surprised again, because it's not often that a whole car seat brand will pivot based on feedback from a few CPSTs out in the field. So that was really nice to see. And then a little bit after that, I had another call with Shai, the CEO, and I guess that meeting that we had after Lifesavers was an interview, and I didn't even know it was an interview. But he asked me if I'd be interested in joining the team as the CPST advocate for babyark. And like I said, I have two little kids, so that was it's a big consideration to take something like that on. But I decided that, it was something that was important and worthy of my time, because instead of just shouting into the void and, sending people messages on social media, I could actually be helping this company, do things right from the start and help, provide some of that guidance instead of afterwards, before. So now I am doing that. I am affecting change from the inside. I work with all different parts of the babyark team, marketing, social media, helping to write manuals, talking to our product engineer, and of course, assisting parents, caregivers, and liaising with other CPSTs. So that's just a little quick rundown about me. That's who I am and why I am here. So now let's get into the meat of this presentation. So we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of different things. I've got a full slate for you guys. Our clearance gap recommendation when installing rear and forward facing, why we recommend the support leg instead of the top tether when we're using our recommended installation, what kind of gap is allowed between the base and the vehicle seat, our chest clip, which I know has been the topic of many conversations, that rear facing head flap, what it is, what it does, the a little, we'll talk about the guided app installation, the guiding lights, what those are, what they do. I'm going to be giving some seat check tips. If you see a baby ark in the wild or somebody asked you to do a seat check on a baby ark, here are some of the things that I have found from the checks that I have done on baby ark seats. We'll look at some of the improvements that baby ark is already making based on feedback we've heard from the field and from caregivers. And I'll show you guys a demo of an installation demo of the new classic seat that we have out now. So let's start out with this clearance gap. So to understand why we need the clearance gap, let's talk first about our safe coil system. And I talk fast sometimes, so I'm trying to slow myself down. So bear with me. So the safe coil system is a proprietary additional safety system inside the baby ark base. It is a steel coil inside the base that elongates upon impact and absorbs some of those crash forces. And when it elongates, the whole top of the shell moves forward, the top of the shell of the base moves forward with it. So I'm going to see if I can get this little video to play here, just a little animation that shows that happening. So let's see here. Back. Oh, here we go. Okay, so you can see the base jutting forward. And then we'll look inside and see, this is the safe coil and it elongates. Okay, so that's what we're talking about when I'm talking about all of the safe coil system movement. In the manual, we do recommend a 3-inch gap between the top of the car seat shell and the vehicle seat that's behind it when it's rear facing, and a 4-inch gap between the front of the base and the vehicle seat in front of it when it's installed forward facing. This is just to allow for additional that additional movement of the top of the base. You know, the safe coil is helping to increase the stopping time and kind of, it's almost like the soft brake of a car or at the end of a roller coaster, right? It doesn't slam to a stop. It kind of goes and slows everything down. So to allow for that movement and to improve our crash performance, we recommend these additional gaps. However, they are not required. So they are recommended, they're not required. This is different from what is currently in the manual that's available online. So we've updated our FAQ to include this information. So these gaps are recommended, they're not required. And because we know that not everybody is driving a vehicle that is, you know, large enough to have the baby ark plus a 3 or 4-inch gap, we did confirm that baby ark may lightly touch the vehicle seat behind it when it's installed rear facing. And how much the coil elongates will depend on, you know, the impact force of the crash, how much the child weighs, etc. But again, these recommended clearance gaps are just to help improve the crash performance. But again, they are not required. One thing that is cool about the movement of the top of the base with the safe coil is that it serves as a visual crash indicator. So if you see that the top of the shell and the bottom of the shell are misaligned, like we saw in that little video, then the safe coil has been elongated, has been activated, and your baby ark has to be replaced. And that will work whether you have the premium model that has the app as well, or if you have the classic model with no app, you'll still be able to see that crash indication. And there really is a little window in the base, just like we saw in the animation, that shows the safe coil. So if you can see in that little window also that the safe coil has been elongated, again, that's another visual crash indicator, which is kind of cool. Oops, now it's going to try to play that again. We don't need that. Okay, here we go. So support leg instead of top tether for recommended installation. According to this 2017 Safe Kids study, 64% of caregivers are not using the top tether when they're installing a forward-facing car seat. And the NDCF, the National Digital Check Form, puts that top tether misuse of any kind, whether it's unused, it's misrouted, it's too loose, whatever, at 53%. And we know that just from being, you know, car side with families, that folks are not remembering to use the top tether, or they don't even know that they're supposed to use the top tether. So something that Baby Ark is trying to do to help improve child passenger safety, to help make best practice a little bit easier, is not requiring that top tether if they are using our recommended installation. So what is our recommended installation? That's rigid latch plus the vehicle seatbelt and the support leg. Now, we know that not every vehicle allows all of these things, right? You may have a vehicle that doesn't allow latch plus the vehicle seatbelt. It specifically says no. Or you may have a vehicle that doesn't allow using a support leg, specifically says no. In those situations, when you're installing forward facing, then yes, we do have a top tether and you should use the top tether in those situations for a forward facing installation. But if your vehicle does not disallow our recommended installation, then we do say that you don't need to use that top tether. Um, so for caregivers that are driving a vehicle that doesn't disallow that recommended install, that means that they are more likely to use that support leg and they're more likely to use it correctly than the top tether. So that just makes things a little bit easier for them. So the top tether and the support leg are both doing that same kind of work of limiting that forward and rotation move, like downward rotation movement of the car seat. And we show improved results for both rear facing and forward facing when using our recommended installation with the support leg versus using a vehicle seatbelt installation with no support leg and the top tether. So we do see some improvement there in our crash test results from using the support leg versus the top tether. So why would we not use them both together for even more safety? Because just like we saw in that little animation, because of how the top of the base can move forward in a crash to help absorb that impact with the safe coil elongating. If it's tethered to the top of the vehicle seat, then it's not going to be able to move forward in the same way, and it's going to reduce the effectiveness of the safe coil. So that's why we say when you're using our recommended installation, the vehicle seatbelt plus the lower anchors plus the support leg, to not use the top tether because we want the safe coil to be as effective as possible. And of course, like I said, if you're not using a recommended installation, if you're using one of the additional install methods, no support leg, no rigid latch, you're just using the vehicle seatbelt and it's forward facing, then yes, you should be using that top tether for the added safety. Very important. All right, let's see. Okay, so the gap between the base and the vehicle seat. If I saw you at Kids in Motion, I was there last month. It was my first my first conference with babyark. So if I saw you there and you came to our booth, then I'm sure that we chatted about this. So I'll chat about it here as well. So the babyark frame, or the babyark base, sorry, is extremely robust. It has the rigid latch, it has the support leg, it has an anti-rebound bar, and we find that rigid frame, the frame-like structure of that base improves crash performance for us, for what we see. Just a little note here also that the babyark base doesn't need to follow that 80-20 guideline for overhang as well because of how it's constructed. And we know that the safe coil is inside the base as well. We talked about that a little bit too. So because of how the base is constructed, we do allow a small gap, 1 inch or less at any point, but not the entire length of the base between the vehicle seat and the bottom of the base. I'm going to show you examples of what this looks like, but I'll show you those in the next slide. When the base is installed correctly, the support leg should not be pushing the base entirely up off of the vehicle seat. I've played a lot with both the smart base, the premium smart base, and the classic base, and I was not able to achieve a correct installation with the entire base floating above the vehicle seat. Both the app and the little mechanical indicator on the classic base said would not give me the all clear on an install that was, I could fit my entire hand underneath the base. So those things are working with us here as well. Is this gap required? No. So it's acceptable and it can be part of a correct installation, but that little gap is not required. And again, it should not run the entire length of the base. So let's look at a couple of examples of acceptable installations here. So these are my own personal vehicles. I haven't put, the babyark into every single vehicle on the road, but these are the 2 vehicles that I have access to right now, and they are a little bit different. So I wanted to show you how you can get a little bit of a different install in different vehicles. So the top photo is from my 2021 Hyundai Santa Fe. It has no waterfall bite, so the lower anchors are just right there at the back of the seat. And you can see that there's just a really small gap toward the front edge of the vehicle seat, right where it starts to kind of roll forward there. You can see a little gap. It's less than 1 inch. And the rest of the base is making nice firm contact with the vehicle seat, all the way back to the lower anchors. Contrast that with down here at the bottom, this is my 2023 Audi Q4 e-tron. This does have a waterfall bite. You can kind of see it a little bit in the second, the smaller picture there. But the lower anchors are actually, the lower anchor bars are actually in that waterfall bite, and so they're raised up a little bit off of the vehicle seat. So you can see in the big picture that there really isn't a gap at all at the front edge of the seat, but there is that 1 inch gap toward the back of the base, where the lower anchors again are raised just a little bit off the vehicle seat. So you can see I'm holding my tape measure. This is like the most awkward thing to get a picture of because my vehicle seats are black, the base is black, so you can't really see. So I'm trying to trying to show you that 1 inch is at the top of that little metal part of the measuring tape, and that is where the bottom of the base starts. So there is just a little, I'm like pointing at the picture as you guys can see me. There is a little 1 inch gap there, but then as you can see in the larger picture, the base does make firm contact with the vehicle seat all the way up as the seat kind of slopes up there. Don't worry, my cars are not always this clean. I did clean them specifically to take these photos just for you guys. All right, let's see here. Oh, so this is just a little animation that shows you what the structure of the babyark seat and base look like. Go back. There we go. So you can see it's a lot of metal. This thing, if you haven't handled one yet, it's heavy, it's robust, it's rigid, and you can just kind of see it all go together there, all of the stuff that makes up the babyark seat. And there's the rest of the shell as well. There we go. Okay. Oh, now it wants to play it again. Okay. So the rear-facing head flap. This little flap, and you can see it right here above the child's head, is only for use in rear-facing, and it provides basically some additional protection for the top of the child's head. So we know that in a frontal crash, a rear-facing child is going to kind of ramp up the back of the car seat, shell a little bit. That's just how crash forces work. So some car seats have that 1 inch rule where the child's head has to be at least an inch from the top of the shell or from the adjuster handle, whichever. Instead of that, we have this rear-facing head flap. So the head flap in these newer models of our seat also contains a D3O polymer, which is a material that is soft and flexible, but it hardens upon impact, providing that protection. So it's absorbing the forces instead of, the top of your child's head making contact with something in the vehicle. This little head flap will be there to protect the top of their head. You can find, I didn't know what D3O polymer was until I was learning more about the babyark seat. But it can be found in motorcycle racing armor. So again, it's really flexible and lightweight. And it's often on like the elbows or knees, ankles, all those like vulnerable joint places. And as soon as it feels impact, it hardens, it absorbs those crash forces and protects those vulnerable places on the motorcyclist. And now it's protecting children's heads in car seats. There's also a reminder on the head flap, the inside of the head flap, that says keep open and rear facing to help remind caregivers to keep it open when their child is rear facing. They will have to open that at some point because that is also where our harness adjustment mechanism is. The little pull tab for our no rethread harness is right under there. So when they go to adjust it, it's right there, the little embossed print saying to keep it open when you're rear facing, and it can just be stowed away when they're forward facing. So again, we don't have the 1 inch rule. The head flap is providing that extra protection of a larger headrest in the event of a crash. Okay. So let's talk about our chest clip. And I will, there is an animation on the slide after this that, or not animation, video that does show what the chest clip looks like in case you haven't seen one yet and you are curious. So according to the NDCF, the National Digital Check Form, chest clip misplacement is the third most common harnessing error in the US. So we're looking to make things a little bit easier for caregivers as always. And one way that we're doing that is that the chest clip on the babyark seat is integrated into the shoulder pads. So the chest clip just has limited movement within those required harness shoulder pads, which makes it easier, well, more likely at least, for the caregiver to place the chest clip correctly at armpit height instead of down at the belly. In fact, I was doing some experiments with this with my various huggable images dolls, trying to see if I could get it down at the belly level. And I got close with the newborn doll, but as I use my older dolls, it gets much more difficult to try and get that chest clip in a really, really far down the doll's body because of that limited movement. There is, for those who are curious, there are magnets in our upholstery and in the chest clip, but we do have non-magnetic versions of the upholstery, of the soft goods, and the chest clip if there is a child that can't be around magnets for whatever reason. So a question that I've gotten a couple times at Kids in Motion and from others is, well, does this soft chest clip, which we haven't really seen before, actually even function as a pre-crash positioner? From our crash tests, yes, absolutely. The chest clip is not just a magnet, it has a mechanical, it's mechanically locked together, right? You can't just pull it apart and that's it. The magnet helps to assist it going together, but it does have a mechanical connection. So when it's used and placed correctly, just like any other chest clip, it works to keep those harness straps positioned correctly on the child's shoulders. And then the harness design also, including how it's routed in the shell, and there's an anti-slip kind of like grippy surface on the back of the harness pads that helps to also keep the harness straps positioned correctly in a crash. So we have a few things working for us there as well to keep everything where it should be as long as the harness is being used correctly. So let's take a look at that little video here. You can see what all of this looks like. Maybe, yeah, here we go. So those black things, that's where the grippy pad is on the underside of that. And you can change the height of or the positioning of the harness straps as well that way. That's that limited movement of the chest clip. And here you can see that it does magnet together, but it doesn't, if you pull sideways, it does not just come apart. In fact, I had a babyark car seat shell sitting on the floor of our living room, and my 4.5-year-old was trying to play with it, and he could not figure out how to get the chest clip apart. So kid tested, mother approved. All right, let's look here. Oh, now it wants to play the video again every time. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the app that comes, the babyark app. So on the base itself, I guess all of the electronic components, for the smart bases, there are guiding lights. So you can see a couple of pictures of those here. We have these little arrows that light up on either side of the rigid lower anchors. They're, blue, and they'll light up saying kind of like with motion, blue lights saying you want to plug it in here, right? And then once it's green, that means you've done it correctly. And there's several other lights on the base. You can see a couple of them in this other picture here that say, okay, now do this. They'll light up in blue to signify now do this. And then you do that. And then once you've done it correctly, it lights up in green to say, yay, you've done it correctly. So if a caregiver has the smart base, then they will have these guiding lights as long as it's, charged and turned on. So even if they're not using the app for whatever reason, if they have a smart base, then they will still have access to these guiding lights, which is a nice little additional bonus feature. The guiding lights obviously can't tell you to do everything, but they can tell you to do at least a few things on the install, which is nice. And then if they do have a smart base, they can download the app as well, and they can get step-by-step live time walkthrough of the installation, which has, literally step by step. So place the base on the vehicle seat, connect the rigid lower anchors, like you see here in the screenshot, route and buckle the seat belt, tighten or lock and tighten the seat belt, open the anti-rebound bar. It really walks you through, and every single time, either the app will confirm it from a sensor that you've done that step and then advance your installation process, or you will confirm it. Obviously, we don't have a sensor that says, oh yeah, so I can tell you've locked the vehicle seatbelt. We can't sense that yet. But you can say, yes, I've locked the vehicle seatbelt, and it will show you a little animation of how you typically lock a seatbelt, which is really handy. Just to say that the classic version that we'll be talking about in a little bit, you can also download the app. It just won't be able to, have those, it doesn't have the sensor, so it won't be able to live walk you through those steps, but you can still download the app as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few slides. Okay, so why does babyark have an app in the first place? There was a study that showed that there are actually benefits to having app guided instructions versus just reading the user manual. The participants in that study found that the app guidance was clearer. It gave them, the participants, a higher level of satisfaction and a greater confidence in their ability to install the car seat correctly. I'm not going to, speculate too wildly about why that is, but I would assume that, at least part of that is because they are getting some kind of actual feedback that, yes, you've done this thing, yes, you've done this thing, now do this thing, as opposed to, when you're reading instructions, you're not getting that same kind of feedback from something or someone. Which is why I think, so many folks love to go see a CPST once they've already done it, because again, you're getting that same feedback. But for folks who maybe don't have access to a CPST in their area, they don't know what that is, then maybe the app can help provide them a little bit more guidance and, confidence. So the app also has, in addition to this kind of live step-by-step walkthrough, which is great. It has some other things as well. So it can show installation errors. So if something, you put the car seat in and I don't know, something bumped the support leg and now it's not in the correct position, the app will, send a flag up if the base is on and charged, you're using the app, right? It will give you an alert that says, hey, something's wrong with the support leg, you need to fix it. And then once you fix it, it'll say, oh, okay, you're all good now, right? We also have, again, for the smart version of the seat, if the base is on and charged and you're using the app, we have the forgotten child alert. So the app will alert you if your child is seated and buckled and you leave and you walk away from the vehicle, you walk away from them. It'll say, hey, please go check on your child. It looks like you've walked away from the vehicle, which is a nice feature as well. It will also notify you if, your child unbuckles the crotch buckle while you're driving. It will say, hey, this has happened, your child is unbuckled while they are seated. Please fix that, which is, again, another nice little feature. To some kids are escape artists and they figure out these things, so at least that way the caregiver can know and hopefully find a safe place to pull over and address that with their child, so that they're not driving unsafely. The other things that we have in the app is just a place to access car seat safety information. Again, this is not a replacement for reading the manual, but we know that so many caregivers are not reading the manuals anyway. So, if we can capture folks in this app instead, I think that's great. We can give them some guidance for correct usage. So even if they're, looking at the manual going, oh, I'm never going to read that. I don't want to read all those instructions. Maybe they might be more interested in these little quick hits from the app. Just, one screen that shows them a little bit about harness height positioning, or how to recline the seat correctly, or, how do you lock your vehicle seat belt? Maybe we can get them interested in getting that information from the app, so that we can get them some information as opposed to no information. The app also will track how much time your child has spent in their car seat, if that's something that's interesting to the caregiver, and it has a remote status as well. So, if there's another caregiver that is caring for the child, then somebody else can see, like, oh, the other person can see, hey, looks like they picked them up or dropped them off, which is a nice feature as well. So app features that are coming soon. Um, we are working to have the app notify emergency contacts if the caregiver doesn't respond to that initial forgotten child alert. Having the app collect crash data information for emergency services. And then this is a cool one that is interesting. We are trying to work on a way to gather some additional information when caregivers register with the app to get the child's height and weight when they register for the app, and to send them periodic reminders to check the harness height to make sure it's still, at or below for rear facing, but not too far below, right? And at or above for forward facing, but not too far up and not below the shoulder. And, for, weight-based things like, hey, your child is probably over 11 pounds by now. It might be time to remove that infant insert. Or, hey, your child's getting close to our rear facing weight limit. It's time to think about turning them forward facing, stuff like that, which could be really interesting. I think a lot of caregivers don't realize that they have to make those changes. There's a lot of little adjustments on car seats. And, or they might just have forgotten to do that because our lives are busy and other things happen and we just kind of put it out of our mind and it's, oh, we'll get to that in a minute, and we kind of forget. So maybe having this little reminder could be helpful for them. Then the other thing is working on a way to include information in the app for caregivers about the child passenger safety laws in their state. I know I've heard from lots of caregivers at C-Check events saying, well, how do I even know what my state car seat safety information is? And yeah, it can be, tough to find unless you're specifically Googling for it and making sure that you find the right website that says .gov or .org, and then reading through all of those laws to be like, okay, what does this really say? And like, kind of layperson speak. So if we can find a way to get that information for these folks, I think that would be interesting as well, just so they can be like, oh yeah, here's the rear facing law for California. That's so helpful because that's where I live. So that could be interesting as well. If there's anything that, I'm going through this presentation, you're like, well, that doesn't make sense, or, oh, I wish it did this too, please, I'm open to feedback, love feedback. So please, you can always email me, Brittany@babyark.com. And I'm happy to explore all of those avenues as well. All right, let's see here. Okay, so I have not seen a babyark live, like come into one of my local seat check events yet, but I have done several virtual babyark checks. So I wanted to just share some of the findings from those checks. And gosh, is this covering up the front of like the screen for everybody or just me? I don't know. There we go. Maybe that'll be helpful. I'm sorry if it was covering up the screen the whole time, guys. So some NDCF tips for babyark seat checks. babyark is not yet on the list of brands. I am talking to the NDCF team, and we are going to get on there shortly, hopefully. But right now, if you do a babyark seat check today or tomorrow, or before they get it on the list, just scroll all the way down in the brand list to other, and then you'll be able to manually type in babyark. We know that that expiration date field on the NDCF is required, and we also know that the babyark doesn't have a expiration date. However, we do have a required 10-year maintenance check. And the seat, will not be good to use if it doesn't go through that maintenance check first. So you can enter that 10-year date in the expiration date field. So at least we can be tracking that information. And then, there's also that field in the NDCF that says, is this car seat registered? And I know that sometimes caregivers will come in and be like, I don't remember if I registered, especially if they have a brand new baby, they're tired, their brains are tired. The good news is if they have a smart version of the base and they've already, connected their babyark to the babyark app, then that has registered the car seat for them. Otherwise, they can still use our the card that we send in the mail, or they can do it online too, just like any other brand. And then I just wanted to say this, that if the caregiver has questions about the app, please refer them to our customer service. We don't want you to become, babyark tech support. That's obviously not your job. You're there to install, provide education about installing car seats, not to troubleshoot an app. The app is not required to install the car seat or base. It's not required to make sure to have a properly installed car seat or base. Um, you can absolutely, if you're having issues with the app or the caregiver is having issues with the app, just turn off the base and just proceed with the seat check as normal using the written instructions in the manual. That's the best way to do that. Just so that you guys don't feel like, oh, now I have to troubleshoot an app. You don't. That's not required to complete a seat check for the babyark. For the classic model, it does not include guiding lights or sensors in the base for real-time confirmation. So you don't need to, you don't need to use the app for that at all. You can just do a normal seat check. There won't be any lights or apps or anything like that. Things to double check when you're doing babyark seat check, that when the child is rear facing, that they're using that rear facing head flap, that the side impact wing is pulled out and in use on the door side of the car seat if they're using our recommended installation. And always, because we have a seat that allows, support leg, that allows the rigid latch plus the vehicle seatbelt, just taking a look in that vehicle manual to double check for guidance about support legs and latch plus vehicle seatbelt, just to make sure that everything lines up as it should. Um, does babyark allow? So I know these are things that I always wonder when I'm looking at a new seat, so I wanted to kind of put them all in one place for you guys. Does babyark allow inflatable seatbelts? No, inflatable seatbelts are not allowed for any of our installations. Vehicle seat protectors, yes, if you're using our recommended installation, again, that's the support leg plus the vehicle seatbelt plus rigid latch, then you can go ahead. If you're using an alternate installation method, which is just the vehicle seatbelt or seatbelt plus top tether when forward facing, then no, they're not allowed. Floor mats. So the babyark support leg doesn't rely on friction with the floor to work. So a floor mat shouldn't affect the performance of the support leg. Latch plus vehicle seatbelt, yes, obviously that's part of our recommended installation. So yes, babyark does allow that if it's allowed by the vehicle. Like we talked about, we also allow that light touching of the vehicle seat in when the car seat is installed in rear facing. The current version of the premium seat is approved for use on aircraft. Obviously with its base, it can't be used without its base. And but on the classic and future models, the seat and the base will not be approved for use on aircrafts. So definitely something to double check there. Although it's a fairly large seat, so I think it might be unusual for folks to be traveling with it. But just in case, you never know. And machine washing. So yes, all the babyark covers zip off and they can be machine washed and drip dry. All right, let's see here. Okay, so here are some improvements that we have already made based on feedback that we've gotten from caregivers and from CPSTs out in the field. So the updated versions of the base, including the classic, which I'll show you a demonstration of in just a little bit, have a belt tensioner, which improves that stability of the base in the vehicle, and has shorter lower anchor connectors, which brings it a little bit closer to that vehicle seat back that it's installed on. The updated versions of the shell, including the classic, have a higher top harness height of 16.7 inches. The classic version itself was based on feedback from caregivers who said, hey, I really like the seat, but I don't know about the app part. So we made the babyark basically without any electronics or app connectivity, but it still has all those same standard mechanical safety features that you'll find. On the premium babyark, it still has the support leg, it still has rigid latch, has an anti-rebound bar, has the side impact wings, the rear-facing head flap, and it has that safe coil in the base as well. A couple of retroactive updates. So the infant insert is recommended for infants under 11 pounds, but you can continue to use it while the child is rear facing until you can get a good fit without it. We know that some babies have like shorter torsos, and even though they're over 11 pounds, they still can't quite, their shoulder's not quite at that lowest harness height yet. So you can keep using that until you get a good fit when they're rear facing, and you can use the head insert and the body pillow separately. And then the clearance gap that whether it's required or recommended, just like we talked about, it is recommended, but it's not required. And this clearance gap update is, again, this is on our FAQ updated. I'll have to double check and see if that infant insert one is on the FAQ as well, but we'll make sure they're both there so that if parents and caregivers have questions about those things, you can send them right to our FAQ to confirm that, both of these things are now true, because they are different from what's printed in the current version of the manual. All right, so here is my very awkward demo installation of the babyark Classic. Hopefully it's all right for you guys. I put the tech specs for the Classic here on the left side of the screen. They will stay there the whole time so you can look at them, because I am a millennial and I filmed this in portrait mode. I'm so sorry, but at least we can see two things at once now. So here is the demo. All right, here we go. Let's keep going. Next, click the rigid lower anchors onto each lower anchor bar. You'll see a green indicator pop out once the lower anchors are properly secured. Then, route the vehicle seatbelt through the belt tab at the back of the base and buckle the seatbelt. You'll want to remove the slack from the belt. Press the rectangular button on top of the base to release the anti-rebound bar. This new base has a belt tensioner, so while holding the slack out of the seatbelt, firmly press the anti-rebound bar into the vehicle seat to tension the seatbelt. This is not a lock-off, so you must also lock the seatbelt. Test for tightness on the base near the anti-rebound bar. There's a red-green indicator at the front of the base for the support leg. You can see here the support leg is not engaged and the indicator is not green. Pull down on the support leg and make sure it's making good contact with the vehicle floor. Now the support leg is being used properly and the indicator is green. Next, we're going to dock the car seat shell. Lift the babyark by the interior handle and place it on the base. Once it is properly docked, the metal safety bar will fall down so you can safely position a child. Make sure the shell is properly reclined. When using the recommended installation method shown here, the car seat can be reclined anywhere within the black safe zone. To change the recline angle, use one of the handles on the front of the car seat shell near the zippers. Squeeze the handle with one hand and use your other hand to change the recline angle. If installing in an outboard seat, open the babyark side impact wing on the door side of the car seat by pressing the circle and pulling out until it locks in place. If installing rear facing, open the rear facing head flap at the top of the adjustable headrest and keep it open. This provides extra protection for the child's head in a crash. And that's how you install the new babyark Classic. If you ever have any questions or concerns, feedback from what you see in the field, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can always reach me via email, Brittany, BRITNEY, @babyark.com. All right, so that was our little demo. Oh, no, don't play again. Okay, here we go. So just a quick look at both of these all together. So again, they have all the same mechanical safety features. All that is the same. As you saw in the tech specs in the last slide, the rear-facing weight limit on the Classic is 50 pounds, whereas on the Premium it's 55 pounds. So that's definitely a noticeable difference. And then the Classic doesn't have the guiding lights or the app connectivity, which the Premium does, of course. However, of course, the Classic can still, those folks can still download the babyark app and they can still get access to that information about car seat safety. It just won't live walk them through the installation. And then the Premium has that carbon fiber in the shell, which the Classic does not have the carbon fiber, but it has a steel frame instead. All right, let's see here. And then one other thing that's coming soon for all the CPSTs out there, we are planning a CPST section for the babyark website. So we have all different kinds of stuff that we're hoping to put on there, like little blog style articles about features from the babyark or child passenger safety topics, some more in-depth detailed FAQs. The ones that we have on our regular website are just short and to the point for those parents and caregivers that need a quick answer, but these would have more information just to give the CPSTs a little bit more background. I know a lot of us are just, car seat nerds that even if we don't share all that information with the caregivers, we like to know, just for our own information, the why behind some of that. A place where you can ask our product engineer a question, submit a question to be answered by him, or, submit a question to be answered by me, a section for our upcoming events, and then a place to find our webinars and quizzes as well. Okay. And here's my contact information. So if you ever have questions, you can always email me, Brittany@babyark.com. And then I'm also on Instagram at babyarkcpst. So if you ever see folks that have questions or you have a question, you can always tag me in on Instagram as well. So that is my presentation. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing and I'm going to open up the chat here to see if I have any questions sitting in here. Okay, so the one that I see was from Spencer saying, what's the minimum weight for use with the infant insert? So the baby arc goes from 4 to 65 pounds. So four to 55 pounds for the premium rear facing, and then it's for the forward facing, it's 26 and a half to 65 pounds. And then for the classic, obviously, the rear facing is 4 to 50 pounds instead. Does anybody else have any questions? I've stunned you all into silence. You're welcome, Holly. Should the base be periodically charged when not in use? Yes, that's a really good question. So yeah, you will have to charge the base. We do approve the charging of the base kind of in the vehicle while, you can leave the base plugged in to your vehicle all the time if you want, as long as that cord is not in anybody's way and it's not interfering with anything. You can leave it plugged in so it charges constantly. Otherwise, yeah, take it out. A charge should last about a month, I think, and then you'll need to charge it back up again. Um, and then let's see. Do you now consider this car seat the safest in the industry? So at heart, I am a CPST. And there is no one safest car seat. There can't possibly be one that works for every single kid and every single family and every single vehicle. It's just not possible. I think that the babyark car seat has a lot of great safety features, right? It has all of the industry standard safety features, the support leg, the rigid latch, the anti-rebound bar, the side impact wings, has all of those things. Plus it has the safe coil, which is an additional safety feature. So yes, it performs really well in crash tests. So it is a seat that has a lot of great safety features. And I think that, having that app is helpful to help caregivers hopefully use it correctly as well. But again, the safest car seat is the one that fits your child, fits your vehicle, and that you can use correctly for every single ride. So if that's this car seat, then that's great. And if it's not, then that's okay too. We're just here to try and make the best car seat that we can, and the one that, is the safest that we can make it. What are my favorite features as a parent using the seat? So I do love, you can kind of see it behind me actually, that wow, it's hard to point like opposite. So you can see that the upholstery does have those magnets in it, which holds the harness straps up, which is really cool. I love that because that way, like your kid's not climbing in there and everything's underneath their bottom and you have to pull it out and they're like, I hate this. So that's really fun. And I also love the flip forward. Oh, there it is. The flip forward crotch buckle as well. Again, you don't have to like fish that out from underneath them. It's always forward and waiting for you. So I love that. And then also, I don't know if I mentioned this, but you can, because of how everything is designed, you can adjust the recline angle when your child is already harnessed, which is nice. Maybe harder to do for when your child gets older, as you're kind of like you have to move the whole seat with a minute, but you can do it on the fly, which is nice as well. And when do you think the name will appear in the NDCF? That's a good question. I don't know. NDCF team is really responsive, so I would imagine pretty soon. But I don't know. They didn't say like, oh, we'll get it in there tomorrow. I don't know. Not sure. Soon, I hope. All right. Any other questions? I really struggle with shoulder straps twisting on my first child, so these work any better. So yeah, we always say the harness straps are only twist when you are in a rush, right? They only start twisting when you're really trying to get somewhere with any kind of urgency, and then all of a sudden these twists appear. It happens to me too, with various car seats that I've used over my kids' lives, and sometimes that's just what happens. With the no rethread harness, that does make it less likely that the harness straps will twist because you don't have to take anything apart to rethread it. So it's less likely that there might be an error there. You can just, pull the harness up and down. I do think also that, having those harness pads on there can help a little bit as well. It makes it a little bit less likely that it'll completely like twist inside the pad. Um, but yeah, I mean, car seat harness straps sometimes twist, and I think that that will be an amazing day when somebody invents a way to make an untwistable harness strap. All right, anything else? Well, if you have free time in about half an hour, I will also be going live on Instagram with Jamie Grayson, and we will be chatting even more. So this was, the more technical side for CPSTs, really, but Jamie and I will be talking more toward like gearing more toward parents and caregivers. So it'll be fun to chat with him. So come join us on Instagram at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. You can spend your whole morning with Baby Ark. It will be fun, says Jamie. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. And I hope this was informative. And thanks for having me for my very first Baby Ark webinar. All right. See you guys later.